Hello guys, Sir Grandelot here. Today we talk about the story of Chaos Zero Nightmare, the story that has been rewritten. What has been rewritten is Chapter 1, or rather Act 1, all the chapters 1 to 5. And when I say all the chapters, I mean that everything has been changed, modified, some in a more minor way, some in a very extensive way, and a few things were added here and there. If you've already done the story, when you do a second run to experience the new things, you will notice a few extra nodes here and there to complete that will probably bamboozle you. Because you will be thinking, wait a moment, I went through the whole story, how did I miss that? It's because it's a new thing. And when you enjoy the story, you can do it in two ways. Doing view all, you get to do all the combats and all the encounters again, essentially experiencing the whole thing as if it was your first time. Or if you do view story only, you get to read all the dialogues and watch the cutscenes, but you skip fights and encounters. So the way you do it is totally up to you. Now, before we talk about how the story is being retold, I need to talk about what my issues with the original story were. The first problem was a tone disconnection at the very beginning of the story. I really liked how the story starts with the Chaos mission, the dark, gloomy environment, the constant sense of danger. Things happen to Rey, but we know that now she's okay. That part was strong. After that, when we go back to the SS Nightmare, it didn't feel like that anymore. It felt like the story just kept going, but there was a lack of urgency. Like, it didn't give me the feeling that people were really concerned about the chaos exploration, all the consequences of it, what it means overall on a universal scale. It was like, yeah, we're back on the spaceship, let's have some chocolate, let's go to have a sauna, and stuff like that. Not literally, but I'm talking about the tone of it. Like when we went back to the spaceship in the original story, I didn't feel a lot of urgency for the fact that this chaos was obliterating the universe. My second problem has always been the captain, because I hate chosen one tropes. In books, in movies, in games, it doesn't matter. I really dislike chosen ones. And to me, the captain felt a lot like that in the original story, because he doesn't do anything, he doesn't say anything, he's just there for the sake of being there as the main character, and everyone respects him, everyone likes him, everyone does the things for him, everyone is thankful that he's around, but he has not done anything to deserve any of that from any of the characters in the game. And I think the idea might have been, there will be backstories later that explain, but it was never really well explained why everyone cares about the captain. I really dislike chosen ones, and sometimes people bring up the example of Luke from Star Wars, but that's a bad example. Because Luke is not a chosen one, and he's not even a Mary Sue. His family gets us blasted, and then he goes on a very long period of training because he has some special abilities that make him unique, but not a chosen one. And then, after the training and everything, he becomes the Luke that we all know, until the new movies destroy his character. But they don't count, they're not canon. And talking about another game that you may or may not be familiar with, on Star Rail, the number one character that I despise the most in that game is Finon, because he's the chosen one in Amphorios, and every 5 minutes we're reminded that he's the chosen one. And you cannot spend more than 5 seconds without talking to an NPC or another character reminding you that Finon is the chosen one. He's going to be the chosen one too. I cannot stand it. I really dislike that kind of writing. Captain, in the original version of the story, felt a lot like that. Issue number 3, it's a couple of issues actually. Judas, the main villain, for me he wasn't characterized very well. If you have watched the Marvel movies and DC movies in the last few years, may God have mercy on your soul, but unfortunately we've all been through that. If you ask anyone who is a good villain in that kind of movies, everyone is going to tell you Thanos. Everyone. There is not a single person who is going to say, what was his bloody name? Steppenwolf. Now, Thanos is a cool villain, because he has a purpose, and we understand the purpose. Now, the way he wants to do it is bad for us, so we perceive him as a bad guy, as an antagonist, and we understand why the heroes want to stop him. But what makes him a good villain is that he has a purpose, and you can understand it, and that sort of stuff. Steppenwolf, for example, it feels a lot like I want to destroy the universe because I am evil, and I am evil because I want to destroy the universe. Like, what the fuck? Who wrote this? A 5-year-old? And Judas was not characterized very well. He often gave me that kind of feeling that he was just being evil. Why? Because bad. I didn't like Judas very much in the original story. And during the story, during the 5 chapters, there were many instances during which I thought that some NPCs or combatants could have had a bit more screen time to talk more about them, about their background, about what they do, about what, that sort of stuff. How have things been addressed? The story starts with a much darker tone, and there are more instances reminding us of the dangers of the horrors, of going into chaos and the consequences. This is something that is spread out more, especially during chapter 1 of Act 1. There is no longer the instant cut that, okay, we did our thing in the chaos, okay, it's over, let's go to have a party on the SS Nightmare. No. Now it has a much better and cohesive tone, and I think that I would have appreciated a lot more the story if my first playthrough was like this. The other 2 issues have been fixed as well for the most part, but this for me was the biggest change. Because Act 1 and the first few chapters were our introduction to the story of the game. So the fact that it started so well and then it fell off a cliff, it bothered me a lot. Like, oh okay, hopefully the next chapters, the next acts will be better. But now it felt good, like I have enjoyed the story. I'm not talking about, oh, this is a new Lord of the Rings level of... No, it's not like that. It's a gacha game, so from the story, do not expect life-changing narration. But as far as gacha games go, right now, Chaos Zero Nightmare, the chapter 1, the act 1, is pretty good. I've quite enjoyed it. We go to issue number 2. The captain feels a bit more like a character now, luckily. Now, there is a problem in gacha games in general, that the main character is never a proper role-played character that you design, and you create it, and you customize it the way you want it. They don't let you do that. It is a bit of a blank slate, which happens very often in anime and manga as well, that doesn't do a lot, doesn't say a lot, sometimes he's just part of the story, and you're there on the ride with him. And, that is a design decision that I can appreciate. But considering how important the captain is in the story, I'm glad that this rewritten version, this retold version, gives him something to do and to say right from the very beginning. Like, he makes decisions and he takes action during the story, but as he was doing it, it was making me feel, yeah, that's what I would do, that's cool, I like that. And you understand why our combatants and our characters respect the captain for his decisions and his action making. And something that would not work in a story like this would be a main character like Mad Max. Now you're thinking, oh no, Sir Grandelot is having a stroke. No. Stay with me for a moment, stay with me. Mad Max is the main character, you know the Mad Max movie, right? But although he's the main character, he's mostly there for the ride. Like, we follow him, we view the story through his eyes, but the real story of a Mad Max movie is the world around him, the other characters, the things that happen, and we're just there with him to experiencing them. Other than that, he's just a dude who is fooling around in the wasteland. For the captain in Chaos Zero Nightmare, this cannot work because he's the captain of a giant spaceship nightmare that is trying to save mankind from the chaos. If he was a random dude aboard the spaceship, it would work. You know, he's a janitor, he stays there doing janitor things. Okay, you can have a kind of narration where the main character is a bit of a blank slate and he doesn't do much and you experience the story through his eyes. But since we are the captain in the story, we need something to do and we need important things to say. From that point of view, the story has improved a lot and it gets my thumbs up. Then, combatants, characters, Judas. Judas has improved a lot. He feels more like a villain that you can, I don't want to say understand, but he's much more enjoyable as a villain in the story. Again, no spoilers, so I cannot tell you how much and what has changed in the story. But the story arc where Judas shows up is written much better. Which is important, because villains in general are one of the most important parts of movies. And if the villain is weak, you're not going to enjoy the story, because, you know, well, okay, whatever, the good guys are going to win, nothing is going to happen. And it's not interesting. But if a villain is, you know, written well, showcased well, and all this sort of good stuff, you enjoy the story more. And it has improved. And there are also some additions. I cannot tell you what has been added, but I will tell you 2 words: evil mommy. And when you go through the story, you will know exactly what Sir Grindelwald meant at this point in time. Days, months, years, decades from now, you will go through the story after watching this video, you will get to evil mommy, and you will, oh, that's what Sir Grindelwald meant. And you will come back to this video and you will leave a comment, yeah, evil mommy, and you will know. And many other characters / combatants, because some characters in the game are combatants, some are not, some we don't know if they will be released as combatants. So, generally speaking, many characters had some extra lines of dialogue or extra scenes and extra exposition to the background story, so we get to know a bit more about them. Some new have been added. The biggest glow up is definitely Renoa. Renoa and the captain and their relationship is clearly the biggest glow up of this retold version of the story. No spoilers, I will not tell you what happens, although I could, because the moment you start the story, it's there, essentially. But it was beautiful. I really like the extra scenes for Renoa. There is no spoiler, so don't worry about it. But at the very beginning of the story, something happens in the original version of the story, essentially off screen. And it sounded cool in my head, but it always left me something to be desired, because I wanted to experience what was happening off screen in the way that the writers wanted. And it didn't happen. And in the retold version of the story, we get to actually see well what happens, and it's very cool. Like Renoa, best girl, must protect. She doesn't need much protection, but you know, must protect regardless. So these were overall my thoughts, very positive thoughts regarding the story. Rewritten version of the story of Chaos Zero Nightmare. I do not know if they plan long term to do changes in chapter acts 2, 3 and 4. I don't know, it didn't feel like they needed to. The narration of the following acts was fairly linear and cohesive, and it was fine. Like, some of the stories here had the characters that I really liked, and I enjoyed them more. Others have characters that I didn't really care about a lot, so, you know, the story was like, whatever. But overall, for me, Act 2, 3 and 4 were fine. Just Act 1 had some serious issues, which were addressed by the developers and the producer, and they were, I would say, for the most part addressed. As I mentioned earlier, do not expect groundbreaking levels of written narrations, anything like that. But Chaos Zero Nightmare went from having an Act 1 that was really subpar to this is, by gacha standards, I would say a good 7. A very good 7. Let me think. For me, the best story in gacha is the first 11 or so worlds of Guardian Tales. That is a game that if I sold it offline, in a boxed or digital version, without any gacha, that game would be worth purchasing just for the story alone. Like the first 11 or so chapters of Guardian Tales are an amazing experience. After that it fell off a cliff, because the story was pretty much done. And for me right now, Chaos Zero Nightmare is not on that level, but it's better than many of the other gacha games that I played during the last few years, that always start with someone falling in the water, waking up on a shore, Paimon or not Paimon goes to the main character, and they wake up together, and suddenly they're surrounded by a million characters that care about main character. You know? I think you know what I'm talking about, and it's just that it's not just Genshin Impact. Wink, wink. Is it a mod of Genshin Impact in Unreal Engine? I don't know. Maybe I'm talking about that piece of garbage. But let's go back to Chaos Zero Nightmare. For me, the story is fine. I wish that this was the way we experienced the story the first time. I would have enjoyed it much more, but I'm very glad that the developers decided to address this issue and spent this time, these months, working on it and improving it. Because it would have been very easy for them to dismiss it. Like, oh, whatever, we are on Act 4. Act 1 was a bit abysmal, whatever, people will not worry about it. But no, they went back, they changed it, they improved it, so overall this gets a huge thumbs up from me, also because the story for me is the least important part of Chaos Zero Nightmare, and I'm not saying this to, let's say, lower its importance or its value, but it's because I play Chaos Zero Nightmare up to 5 hours a day, sometimes more, because the gameplay. Like, I'm always here, I'm always in sortie, I'm always doing chaos exploration, and I'm playing meme teams in endgame mode. The story for me is mostly one and done. Like, I go through it, I enjoy it, okay, that's it, thank you. It was 1 hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, fine, cool. But it's a small part for me. But I do appreciate the change. I really do appreciate it. And I'm sure that people who are there to enjoy the story, the characters, and their growth are going to appreciate the way their story is now being told, because, as I said earlier, it's not groundbreaking, but it has vastly improved from how it was before. So good job, Smilegate. Keep the good writing going, and looking forward to the Season 4 stuff. Bye guys, take care.